How we doing, boys and girls? This is Courier-Six coming at you with an update on his YouTube channel. Yeah, I know, kinda look like crap. I haven't shaved in a while, and just recently started a new drug that's kind of caused me to put on weight. So, won't go into any of that crap. Leave your comments down below. It is what it is. Anyway, some of y'all know as fans that I have been away from my channel for about a year, and I was planning on coming back because recently I picked up a very cool bucket list firearm of mine. For the generation of kids that grew up on Terminator 2, shooting Red Riders, that kind of crap, I recently managed to get my hands on the first in my area, the 1887 Cimarron lever-action shotgun. It's extremely new, like, it only came into the shop about 2 days before I went in and saw it, and I automatically bought it because I've wanted an 1887 for something like 20 years. Granted, it's not an original, but it's still a 12 gauge that can handle smokeless powder version of it, not a 10 gauge, so I don't have to try and fight to find ammo for it in the area I'm in, or pay an arm and a leg to get it shipped to my address. I picked it up, I think it was about $500-600, something like that. Can't really go into the specific prices because of YouTube, but it was around that price range. Not very bad, not the best, but it's a small local store. I'm a friend of an owner, so I like to support him instead of going to like Bass Pro Shop or something like that. Picked up this Cimarron 1887, and I was going to do a review of it. I've been out filming some footage for the channel out at the range, and this last trip to the range, I didn't capture it on camera, but I haven't really been catching a lot of primary use of this gun. I've been, it's footage that I'm saving for that video, so don't expect me to upload it here, but when I brought it to the range last, I had a bandolier of about 50 high brass buckshot rounds. Not even really that high powered. It was Winchester, double-aught buck, kind of the usual stuff that you would expect to be using at the range for practicing because it's the most available buckshot you can get on the market. So, I go out with these 50 rounds of double-aught buck, and I've probably put 100 to 200 rounds of double-aught buck through this shotgun. And I know people are probably going to ask, well, why didn't you use field loads? Why didn't you do this, that, the other? And truth be told, if I'm going to use a shotgun for anything like home defense, personal defense, any of that, I am probably going to be using double-aught buck. And since Winchester is the most commonly found double-aught buck, that's what I'm going to use. Not 3-inch Magnum buckshot, 3.5-inch, any of that crap. Just standard 2 3/4-inch high brass double-aught buck. And I put about 200 rounds of this ammo through this shotgun, the 1887. So a few of the problems I've encountered is, one, you can't exactly ghost load it. Now, I'm not sure why this is. There's been another review that I'll probably link down in the comments below that shows also you need to take it to get a conversion so you can ghost load it, where you can do the one in the tube, full tube magazine, or one in the chamber, full tube magazine, and one on the gate. My personal theory is it's probably something to do with the magazine follower, but that's just a theory because I haven't broken it down entirely. Some of the other issues I had, screw for the magazine tube clamp, I'm not sure what you would call it, but the clasp that supports and holds the magazine tube to the barrel, the screw came with a stripped head, partially stripped head. So I could tell the metallurgy on this probably wasn't the best when it came to the screws, but it's screws. The heads don't have to have the best tempering as long as the threads are good and solid, so I gave it a pass, because otherwise the fit, the finish, all fairly decent, especially compared to other shotguns I found at that price range, where even your modern Mossberg 500s don't have fit and finish that was as good as this 1887. So, kind of gave it a pass. The screws have a habit of backing out in the receiver. Again, not a surprise. I've shot Savage 99s, Marlins, Winchester 94s. Like, I am a lever gun aficionado. I've shot them since I was about 10 years old, and every lever gun I have ever shot, if you go through more than like 20 rounds at a range session, the screws are going to back out a little. Just kind of the burden of the beast, or the, unfortunately, the, how would I describe it? The burden you have to bear if you're using a lever action is there's going to be a lot of like screws in order to accommodate that action and that firearm type. How to describe it? I'm kind of at a loss for words. I'm not really back in the full swing of YouTube, but the Cimarron 1887, while I was shooting it, I will give it credit. I didn't have a single malfunction ever. 200 rounds. Not a jam, not a malfunction, nothing. Flawless firearm. It's not like the old Century arms where the inside is like jagged and will cut the hell out of your thumb if you're loading it. Granted, my thumb was blistered because I was loading it so much. Like, I'm firing 50 to 75 rounds per range session. I'm taking this thing out. And that's something you could probably expect from like a Mossberg 500 as well, because you have the retracted loading gate on the underside of the bolt body. So no insides the insides were very well polished. The action was buttery smooth. There was a fair amount of grease in the action, which meant that you didn't really even need to clean it. There wasn't even really cosmoline in there. It was like motor oil almost, that thin oil that helps with reliability. And given that it's lever action, me, along with a lot of other people, will kind of put off cleaning the damn things until the last minute because they're just a pain in the ass to clean. I mean, granted, the 1887 is probably John Moses Browning's best design because it is fairly simple in disassembly, but it's still something that I didn't want to deal with right now. But yeah, it functioned flawlessly, shot perfectly. 200 rounds, not a single jam, which is kind of accomplishment in and of itself, given the fact that very frequently, like a lot of 1887 shotguns, even originals and clones, you will see the last round fails to eject, you will see misfeeds, you will see all sorts of stuff where it's an issue. And the only time I experienced issues was for the first couple of magazines. The first round would jam loading into the chamber, and that I kind of put on me not being used to the action yet. But once I got it broken in, once I got used to the action, once I got used to throwing the lever and how to work the action, I didn't have an issue. A couple of my friends who also shot it, because, you know, we all grew up in the same generation where Terminator 2 came out, a lot of video games, that sort of thing, they would have issues as well because this thing with double-aught buck has a hell of a lot of kick to it. And that's just kind of the design of the firearm itself, the fact that it has a really hefty buttstock and it's a lot more lightweight towards the front end, so it's going to give you a little bit more recoil onto your shoulder, all this different stuff. They would cycle the action, and the issue is they wouldn't throw the lever far enough to get that final click to raise the cartridge elevator. Like I said, you have to get used to the action to get it reliable, but once you get into the swing of using it over and over, I have not had a single issue with the Cimarron 1887 reproduction. The issue that I did have was after these 200 rounds of double-aught buck, and I didn't get this footage. I will probably include a couple of images if I can find them on my phone. I noticed when I brought back from the range and was getting ready to like swab out the bore, clean up some of the carbon in the receiver, and throw it back in the safe, that the stock was sitting there shaking like a maraca. Now, for example, here I've brought my Stoeger coach gun stock, and it's rock solid. That little rattling you hear is the cocking levers right there, the cocking nubs. So this stock is rock solid, screwed to that receiver, no movement whatsoever. And it uses pretty much the same stock tang assembly that the 1887 does, except the Stoeger goes up from the bottom, the Winchester 1887 clone goes down from the top. And the 1887, when I started looking at it, I thought maybe the screw was stripped out. Take the screw out, and there's metal shavings. It looks like it's stripped out. Pull the stock off, and I look inside, and in the lower receiver's tang, this portion right here, for example, the entire thread, like the whole screw hole, the threading in it is stripped out, like, completely for the first half inch. And on top of that, you also have the issue of one of my friends, when he first saw it, said I was missing the tang screw for the stock. And I had to point out to him, no, I have it. It just isn't engaging a solid half inch of threads in the lower receiver tang. So I'm not sure if, because there wasn't enough contact with the threads, it stripped out. Because you hear this very often when it comes to Ruger 1022s, where Ruger 1022 and a few other of their products, their scope rings they come with very short screws, and they give you very minimal contact with the actual scope mount threads and in the receiver. And when you go to fire, over time, if you remove them or under recoil, they will strip out, because the receiver on the Ruger 1022 is aluminum. So I wonder, I know that the receiver on the 1887 is steel, but I wonder if, because this screw, this stock tang screw, is so short compared to what it probably should be, that under the recoil of a heavier shotgun load, a heavier shotgun cartridge, over time it just wore off and ripped out all that threading. So at this point, I voiced my concerns with Cimarron. I called them, spoke to a very kind customer service representative by the name of, I believe, Vicky. Can't quite say for sure because I'm terrible with names. I do apologize. If she's watching this, I kind of doubt it. But talked to her. She was very kind, very understanding. She was in the parts department because I thought it was the screw, and then while I was waiting for her to call me back, because this shotgun is so new, they had to find the physical schematic because it hasn't been uploaded to their computers yet, so they can make sure they're sending me the correct part. But I called them, I voiced my concern to them, I talked to them. She was very understanding, and then when I broke the shotgun down and saw this issue, they gave me a prepaid shipping label, all this other gubbins, and so right now my 1887 is on the way back to the Cimarron factory. They stated that they're going to have their gunsmith inspect it, see what's going on, and advise for the best course of action that should be taken. They said they don't know how long there's going to be, which is already an improvement from Rossi in my general experience, because Rossi, the last time I spoke to them, they kind of gave me the runaround for a solid 6 months. So I will not be purchasing Rossi products from here on out. I've already spoke about that on my channel. You can go back and watch a previous live stream on that issue. However, I did voice my concerns with her where I know this 1887 shotgun is an import from China. Yeah. I already had issues with Rossi, and I told her this, where my Rossi 1892 carbine in 45 Colt had a broken shell stop, and it took them 6 months of giving me the runaround before I could finally get a replacement rifle. And that's just because they could not get the replacement part. Here, you have a piece of the receiver, not like the loading gate, not the screw, the integral receiver that is stripped out. So, to me, I even told her, I don't want to spend another 6 months in this situation where you guys have got to wait for something from China. Oh, no, that won't be the case. We'll send it to our gunsmith, he'll look over it, and he'll advise us on the best course of action. Great. Don't know, she couldn't give me a time frame, which is fair because depending on how many of these they got back. This could have been, because this is so new, this is such a new product that they're importing, that they don't quite have... This could have been like a massive flaw from the first batch. And I'm not saying that's the case. I'm saying depending on how many have been sent back to the factory for this same issue. But how to describe it? My personal worry is that it will take them a while. If they do wind up having to send me a replacement, maybe, hopefully it's a little bit better. But I'm keeping my expectations low, not because it's Cimarron, but because of my previous bad experiences. And I will personally admit that my hesitation to trust something like this, because it is an imported firearm from China, and it's not to do specifically with China, but just in general, Turkish guns, Brazilian guns, European, any of those, if it is not domestically produced in the United States, warranty services or parts production, any of that, I am very hesitant to trust a manufacturer or a retailer because of my previous bad experiences and my own personal negative bias. And I will own that. This shouldn't affect your personal opinion on purchasing a Cimarron 1887. I just wanted to put this out there because I've seen a lot of positive reviews on the 1887, and a lot of them are in regards to like initial first reactions, first thoughts. And you rarely see follow-up videos where they put in a lot of ammunition and time into this gun. So I am hoping for the best when it comes to this 1887. Sorry, I've got an eyelash in my eye now on camera. Wonderful. But this is kind of my shooting style, is this is off the cuff. This is just my honest reaction, my honest thoughts when it comes to this 1887. I am hoping that they get back to me, but at the same time, I don't know. I told this customer representative on the phone, is my main worry is this happened on one shotgun. This could be a lemon. This could have happened like just randomly. But my concern is, given this is a firearm that you are importing, and it's hard to get the quality control from somewhere like China where you're not directly supervising the manufacturer of these shotguns. I'm worried that the heat treat has been compromised on all these shotguns, and if that's the case and you send me a replacement, how is this not going to occur on another shotgun? What's the risk of that? So we will see. I really hope that this isn't really a major issue. I hope that they can go ahead and either re-tap this receiver and just use a slightly bigger screw. I'm hoping they can get this repaired so I don't have to pay another $40 for a background check and transfer. All this different stuff. That's just my concern, is I hope that they can get my gun actually fixed without replacing it. But if that's not the case, I fully understand. Will I be happy? Not particularly well, because again, I know this shotgun works well, and it's just kind of potentially a fluke, or that too. Like I said, off the cuff, I'm not leaving it. I'm just uploading this. I'm not cutting or adding anything in outside of my potential photos. Maybe I'll even just leave that. But yeah, when it comes to the shotgun, I'm hoping that they're able to repair it instead of replace it, because I know this shotgun is 100% reliable so far. And this could have happened on any gun I own. I could have had a Mossberg where the screw that I used to secure the stock on my Maverick 88 stripped out. Something like that could have happened because it's an aluminum receiver. It's just unfortunately one of those things where it's the same as James Reeves, where James Reeves does his shotgun burn downs, and that's why I mainly use this Winchester 1887 and used high brass double-aught buckshot, because you can sit there and baby a shotgun off of low brass field loads, and you can get tens of thousands of rounds of life out of a shotgun, maybe even hundreds of thousands with low brass birdshot. I have a Mossberg 500 that was made in 1997 that's still using all original factory parts except for the shell stop that was worn down from being shot so damn much. And that's largely because the only ammo it ever got fed was cheap bulk low brass birdshot that I picked up at Walmart because most of the time I shot it in my youth, I didn't have the money for buckshot. But here, I wanted to show how durable this shotgun was, to see how long it would survive, and I don't think I was abusive to the shotgun, to be honest. I felt that if you can't sit there at the range, and granted, this is an 1887 shotgun, Cimarron advertises this as only being qualified for 2 3/4 inch shells, but they don't specify in the manual, don't use high brass buckshot, don't use this, that, the other. They don't have any other regulations on, or recommendations, I should say, not regulations, recommendations on what ammo should be used beyond the usual, don't use hand-loaded ammo. If you use hand-load ammo, you'll violate the warranty, yada, yada, yada. We all know the whole shtick they say when it comes to those situations. So I don't feel it's abusive to put high brass buckshot, especially 500 rounds of it, because let's say you want, a lot of people will say, oh, it's a toy gun or it's a neat little gun, but it's not viable for home defense. Well, again, my personal experience with a shotgun is 100% reliability at the range, no malfunctions at all once you get used to the shotgun. Granted, it's a pain in the ass to reload, but if you use this for home defense, it's what you get because, you're buying one gun. You only want the 1887 because you're a fan of Terminator 2 or Red Dead Redemption or whatever. Let's say you are the one person who's going to go out and buy this 1887 because the cool factor. You're not being practical, you're not looking at home defense, but you still want something that you can use for home defense. You buy this 1887. You go out and buy a bunch of buckshot to practice with because someone says you need buckshot for home defense. Realistically, to me, being a firearms owner that knows, if I only own that one gun, like all my other guns I had to suddenly sell off, and that's the one I'm going to keep because that was my ultimate bucket list gun. That was my number one. I'm going to sit there and I'm going to learn where it's shooting, how it's patterning, all this with buckshot, and I'm going to practice with that double-aught buck so that I can effectively use that shotgun. And even then, or let's say you go out cowboy action shooting with this shotgun, because 1887s are allowed in cowboy action shooting. There are some people that will use low recoil, like field brass, or field grade low brass birdshot, but a lot of times since you're using steel torso targets for those, me personally, I'd want something that I know for sure is going to knock the target down, and that will probably be high brass double-aught buckshot. So there's a lot of reasons why I would sit there and use that instead of babying a shotgun. And yeah, while it didn't stand up, it wasn't abusive in my opinion, because if you're just going to sit there and baby that shotgun for its entire life, it's not a tool, it's a toy. Whereas if you sit there and practice with it, learn it, and actually feed it a steady diet of what you plan on using if you ever need to defend yourself with it, it is a tool. And in this case, my tool broke, so I am hoping it does get repaired, it does get fixed. I'm hoping this gets addressed, and that I don't have to wait 6 months to get my shotgun back, because this is probably one of my favorite firearms I've ever owned. Like, in the 3 or 4 months I've owned it, I've brought it out to the range 7 or 8 times, and I've only started recording in the last 3 because there's no reason for me to keep recording if after the first 1 or 2 range trips something goes wrong or it's unreliable, any of that, because I'll probably just return it or I'll sell it. It just is what it is, where I wanted to give this update where the Cimarron 1887, it's reliable, it's very high quality from what I can tell, but it does have an issue where maybe the metal treatment or the metal quality isn't the best, which is kind of disappointing because Cimarron toted like years ago when this was first announced that the 1887 was going to be the best quality 1887 reproduction that was ever made, like bar none. Better than the Pietro ones or the God, I can't even remember the other company, but better than the Italian clones you can get from like Chiappa or Taylor and Co. This was going to be the best of the best for a budget. And I'm worried that this is a sign that it may not live up to expectations, especially with how new this shotgun is. With that out of the way, this has been Courier-Six. I'll get back to you guys with this 1887 and an update, hopefully in the near future.